welcome back to the class, everyone. We once again have bonus drops coming to Galaxy of Heroes in the next couple of days, and when I hear bonus drops, I hear hoarding. So that really does bring us to the theme of today's video. Briefly, before we go into the efficiency of hoarding and whatnot, I do want to talk a little bit about what hoarding is within itself. The idea is we're going to go into each one of these energies several days before. We'll talk more about the days later. And instead of just spending it, we are going to let it cap to where it kind of solidifies as gold. And then on top of that, we are going to start buying energy refreshes. Specifically the 50 crystal refreshes for fleet, as seen here, as well as mod and normal energy, and then for Cantina for 100. The idea behind this is, yes, you will stop accruing energy normally, but you will be able to use that energy for more value once the bonus drops are in effect, because you will be able to spend them on kind of whatever you want. More on that later. And on top of what you're spending them on and getting, whether it be a hard node character or some mods, you're going to get, in addition to it, the Cal Kestis character. So that's the whole concept of hoarding. Now let's go ahead and pull up the Excel sheet where we're going to spend most of our time today. If you want more info on this, CG will probably eventually come out with a post, but before then, we are getting all this info from the Galaxy of Heroes event server, where they posted this data mine, kind of listing out all the information, the fact that it's happening on December 12th until the 14th, and then kind of listing out where each character is going. And we're not going to spend really any time here because I have all this worked into the spreadsheet, but if anyone's wondering where this info is coming from, it's coming from a data mine as per usual. So back to the actual spreadsheet itself. So what we have going on here is we have the dates listed out that you need to be hoarding if you want to hoard. But let's talk more about that right now. So there are some concerns when it comes to hoarding this time around. This is not as straightforward as double drops. Double drops are really easy to calculate because you just take the amount of energy and or crystals you lose by not using the normal accruing energy for that day, and you run the math on how much you're making back during double drops. That's really not how this is going to work, and it's going to become a lot more crucial for people who actually need the characters like Seer, Cal, Marin, Saw, and Tarful. They are spread out amongst these three different areas that we have here on the left, and it's not even quite this clear cut. Cal and Seer are split between dark side and light side hard nodes, not just all of them, but specifically the hard nodes, which is a little bit challenging for some people, not all but some. Tarful and Saw are split between normal and hard nodes, which again presents another challenge. And then Marin's actually just on mod stuff, so Marin's, as per usual, Marin's very cool. And then if you have any of these characters at 7 stars, this is actually going to be a really big deal for the majority of people, and hopefully why a lot of people are watching this video right now. If you have any of these characters at 7 stars, you will get Zeta drops from Cantina. And I think that's where the majority of the worth for the majority of the player base is going to be in this, because ever since the Lightspeed bundles, and even a little bit before that, Zetas are in really high demand right now just because they're being used on so many characters recently. The TLDR on this before we get into the exact math is, if you need the characters, it's probably worth hoarding for them. If you don't, definitely don't. And Zetas, for the most part, are going to be good for most people. But again, getting to the actual, so understanding what's going on here. Assuming a 3% drop rate per energy, which has been roughly what it's been other times. This is no guarantee, but it's typically been between 2 and 4%. So 3% is not really conservative, it's more average. I'm assuming that's what we're going to be getting. That's about 22 shards of Cal and Seer, 19 shards of Tarful, 19 shards of Marin. And for Zetas, and again, this is off of like one data set that could change, but we're assuming a 1% per energy drop rate when it comes to Zetas, which is going to total out about 5 Zeta mats, assuming you are hoarding for that entire day, those 525 pieces of energy for your Cantina. So you are going to be losing energy when you do this. You're going to stop accruing things throughout the day. You're going to lose about 240 for these first 3 energies, and you're going to lose 120 for Cantina. To be able to make up that energy, it would cost you typically a 200 crystal refresh, or rather 2 100 crystal refreshes for normal, fleet, and mod, assuming you're already doing the 50s every day. And then on top of that, Cantina is going to cost you about 200 crystals to recoup the amount that you're going to lose in energy. The really good news is this doesn't touch the amount you're going to get back. So if we look at how much it costs to buy a character from these shipments, it costs about 80 crystals on average. After you do the math, if you're getting 22 character shards on top of however else you're using the energy, you're getting a value of about 1,700 crystals, assuming that 3% drop rate is correct, and then 15, 15, and then 1,200. If anyone's wondering where the crystal value for Zetas is coming from, it's actually really hard to come up with this number because Zetas aren't just regularly available in shipments for like 200 crystals a pop. You have to really do a lot of math when it comes to one of the more popular Zeta packs that appears often for 1,250 crystals. If you run the average math on that for Zetas, they come out to about 240 crystals per Zeta mat. So really, you're losing 120 crystals and you're gaining this much worth, assuming you actually need lots of Zetas, giving it a really good value. For every day that you hoard, you're getting about 1,000 crystals back, because yes, you do lose the hoard energy, but you are going to be essentially buying Zetas for 120 crystals a pop, which there isn't any other place in the entire game where they're going to come that cheap. So if you do need them, this is a great way to get them. Now, there are a few concerns that do go along with this, and let's talk about them. Number one, raid tickets. One of the more difficult parts about hoarding is that when you start to hoard your energy and you're not spending almost anything during that day, you're gonna not have raids nearly as often. This energy can be accumulated through normal or cantina energy. So this means you really need to make a judgment call to not entirely screw your guild here. And you need to either specifically hoard your cantina energy for Zetas, which is fine, or specifically hoard your normal energy for Cal and Seer. I really wouldn't recommend both, just because you also would have to have one of these other characters already at 7 stars to get Zetas. So pick what you need more, help your guild out, get the raids, because ultimately you need those rewards from the raid as well. The other thing that we need to be concerned about is hard nodes. And what I mean by this is you're going to be giving up farming Cal and Seer, Tarful, Saw, Marin. You're going to be giving up farming them for like 4 days or something like that. 3 or 4 days, it looks like. And when you do that, you're not going to be getting the shards from there, and you're essentially going to be replacing them with the shards that you're going to get during the bonus drops. There is kind of some good news with this, and this does revolve around what the drop rates need to be. If the drop rates are legitimately at 3%, this doesn't matter, because even the really low energy nodes like Seer or Saw or Tarful, they come out to about a 2.75 drop rate after you factor in how much energy is needed for the node. So 3 is better than 2.75. So the energy, basically what I'm getting at is the energy you sacrifice not using to farm them leading up to the days, you will make that back in the energy you're hoarding using it as bonus energy on some other random node that's really not all that important. The next thing is going to be more challenging, and this is the fact that they are not universal. And we talked about this towards the very beginning, but I think this is going to be a deal breaker for a lot of people. When it comes to, let's take Saw and Tarful for an example. Let's say you need one and not the other, and I honestly don't remember which one's which. We'll have to look again at the data mine. But Saw will only be available on one of these, and Tarful will only be available on the other. Well, let's just say that it's Saw here that's needed on all of the hard nodes. Let's say you have all the hard nodes done. You really don't want to just be burning your energy on all these other things, when in reality, you're super behind on med packs. You're not really getting a great deal here because you're trading one thing you need for another thing you need, and both their drop rates really aren't that different. Where most of the value is going to come from this event is the fact that the energy that you hoard, that then you go in and spend on, let's say, med packs, you're getting the med pack and you're getting the character at the same time. That's where the value is. Having to burn your energy on stuff that you don't need is not going to end well for you. And as well, this same thing is going to apply to the hard nodes for light and dark, getting Cal and Seer. You really need to be farming a node that you actually need. And I will say, you know, if you are missing a ton of hard node characters, like let's say you're missing 10 or 15 or something like that between light side and dark side, that's probably fine. Even if you're not, let's just go in here right now and look at some hard nodes. Even if you're not farming Echo right this very second, get ahead on him. Like, just do your 5 attempts or whatever. Even if you're not farming Wrecker right now, get ahead on him. And this is scaled to energy, so you don't have to really feel bad about spending 20 energy or 12 or 16. Let's say you're not working on your CLS team yet, but you're probably going to work on CLS at some point, so you might as well just go ahead and do these nodes. The only reason you really shouldn't be doing one of the hard nodes to be able to get Cal and Seer, assuming you do need them too, is if you already have all the characters maxed out. I would really, if you already have most of the characters maxed out, or maybe like let's say 3 are left, this probably isn't the most bang for your buck, because again, you're trading one resource for the other, and it's overall just not all that great. But if you can double down, that is where most of the value is going to be here. So again, if you have hard nodes, pretty good. If not, well, maybe not. And now the next question that we need to kind of address is this actually going to help you unlock Cal, Seer, Marin, Saw, Tarful before Cal Kestis actually comes back? We don't have any information on this. Everyone is assuming right now that Cal will probably be back around Christmas, just because that seems like a nice gift. And quite frankly, this event with characters specifically circling around him as his requirements is really odd just to have out of nowhere if he wasn't coming back. So we really are assuming that is going to be a thing. And if the shards are even worth it to you, you need to know how much you're going to get by the end of this. So I do have this extra page here for the hard nodes for light side, as well as the mod and fleet up here. And this is the amount of shards that you can get overall throughout the event. So if you're spending the 50s, the 100s, and the 200s, you're going to get a daily total of about 41 shards. That's not including any of the hoarded stuff that you should be able to get just by maxing out your energy where it needs to be. And then these are roughly the numbers you can get from the drop rates from the bonus drop. So you can get about 190 extra shards. However you split that between Cal and Seer is up to you, as well as mod and fleet. And remembering that Marin is on mod alone, so you could get 150 shards of Marin if you're hoarding correctly, and then you're doing your 50s, your 100s, and your 200s throughout the event. Not sure I'd even advise the 200s, but this is just how the math works out to. And then again, splitting between our good friends Saw and Tarful. So overall, this is going to vary highly on the individual. The only thing that really screams to me is universally pretty good are the Zetas. If you don't need Zetas, then you probably don't even need to do this in the first place. In fact, this whole video was probably pretty weird for you. But if you do need Zetas, this is a pretty good deal, assuming our drop rates are somewhat accurate, which I think they are based off of the last time this happened. But CG can change these literally anytime. So, I mean, do this at your own risk. At the end of the day, worst case scenario, you're burning 120 energy of Cantina every day that you do this. And you only need to do this for about 3 days. So when it actually comes to hoarding, this is kind of what everything needs to look like. December 12th is the day that we actually need to spend all of the energy, meaning the night before, your energy needs to look something like this. You cannot go beyond these numbers. While refreshing, the game will literally stop and tell you cannot go beyond it. I got some questions from a few people last time. You can go beyond the 144 number with refreshing. It's even though it turns gold and solid, you can just keep going beyond it until you hit these numbers. So if we need to be here the first day, this is kind of where we need to be on December 10th, where we need to be December 9th, and where we need to be December 8th. And if you want to also get your dailies done, you're gonna have to do the math on it, but you can factor in a little bit of extra hoarding or, to be able to make sure you get your dailies and you don't lose out on those crystals. So this was probably the more nuanced efficiency spreadsheet video we've made thus far. So I apologize if it was a little confusing. Basically, main things you need to consider: do you actually need the characters? If you do, it's a pretty good deal. Is it going to actually get you within range depending on where you're at? You can kind of do the math from the numbers here. If it does, great. Take your pick between Cantina and normal, and then ultimately make sure you have enough hard nodes to actually farm most of these characters on, because that's where they're at. Unless it's Marin, which in case, great for you. But that is going to be it for today. Thank you guys for watching, and as always, stay awesome.